Area attorneys, a partner men can count on. 402-858-3220. That's 402-858-3220. Online at CordellCordell.com. That's CordellCordell.com. Office in downtown Lincoln. 1221 N Street, Suite 801, Lincoln, Nebraska 68508.
John Henry's has a brand new membership club to protect your entire home in one program. With a VIP and a deluxe option, we will help you find the plan that best fits your needs. Receive discounts on services and equipment, priority service, complimentary inspections, and so much more. Protect your home's plumbing, heating, cooling, and electrical systems all in one membership. Call John Henry's to learn more.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air,
and Electrical.
When you're outdoors beneath Nebraska skies, adventure comes in all sizes. From quick escapes and long weekends to true off-the-grid retreats. Paddle, hike, camp, explore. Whether you have a few hours or a few days, we'll guide you to a state park or recreation area that's a perfect fit. Start your next adventure today at yournebraskaparks.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Hey Husker Nation, this is Todd Euler, two-time national champion, here to talk to you about Window World Lincoln. At Window World, we specialize in replacement windows, doors, siding, and roofing. Whether you're looking to enhance the beauty of your home or increase its energy efficiency, we've got you covered. And here's the best part. We offer the best for less. Our team is dedicated to providing top quality products and exceptional service at affordable prices. We want to earn your business and make your home improvement dreams a reality. So why wait? Contact Window World Lincoln today at 464-7313 or visit our website at windowworldlincoln.com. Window World Lincoln, where quality meets affordability.
Rain, snow, or shine, John Henry's is here to keep your home's plumbing systems working properly no matter what kind of weather Nebraska throws at us. From unclogging toilets and drains to installing new water heaters and water treatment systems, John Henry's is your plumbing expert in the Lincoln and Omaha communities. Visit us at calljh.com or call John Henry's.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air,
and Electrical.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com.
On the internet.
KNTK FM Firth, 93.7 The Ticket. This isn't any regular heat. This is nuclear heat. Live from the 93.7 The Ticket studios in the heart of Lincoln, America. Bringing you the latest from the Square Circle on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Jake Bockoven.
Yes, settle in your seats. It is that time of the week where we get to talk some pro wrestling here on 93.7 The Ticket. I am Jake Bockoven, alongside Augie Pena, my Nuclear Heat tag team partner and contributor here. Augie, how's it going here? How's the week of wrestling for you?
Oh, it's going pretty good. It's been pretty nice here, in Lincoln today, and the wrestling's been okay. We kind of talked about a little bit behind the scenes. It feels a little rushed. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen where WWE officially has two premium live events that are going to be Saturday and Sunday that are different.
Yeah.
And so you can really tell in kind of how they're developing the storyline with having Saturday night main event and then what's supposed to be an all women's Evolution. But that feels like that's kind of taking the back seat to everything. So they haven't been promoting it. And then all of a sudden this Monday and Friday, well, it was a double taping. So both on Monday, they just kind of squished all the storylines in there, and they're making it happen now.
Yeah, and we still got one more week. Of course, next week will be, as you said, the true premium live events that they have from Atlanta, Georgia. And one of them, I guess you wouldn't necessarily, you don't have to describe it as that, because that's usually kind of the word. That's the
yeah.
That's the WWE word for pay-per-views. They have different words for everything. Like they say local hospitals, they say medical facility instead, because people used to they're taking Goldberg to the hospital. I'm gonna call and go see Goldberg or whatever, and they'll be like, all right, let's make it medical facility. So they have these certain words, and premium live events is one that they go for. And Saturday night main event is obviously on NBC, so it's actually not necessarily a premium live event. It's on a 3-letter network, and it's on a Saturday night, so it's booked like a premium live event. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, that throws me off now that you speak of that, because it is on NBC. Because I think it's on Peacock too, right?
And Peacock.
Yeah,
Peacock owns
yeah,
NBC.
yeah. So
Well,
it
the other way around.
yeah, it's the other. But that just throws me off, man. When it's on live both and you're looking at it, yeah. So I still look at it as a premium live event because they essentially treat it that way because championships match happens, which they do, but like the world heavyweight champ, the actual universal, like those actually are defended and take place on Saturday night main events. But yeah, so I kind of take it that way. But it is, I guess they got spoiled in the 90s and the early 2000s, right? Because I think they had wrestling like, what was it? Like they had a Nitro, like a Wednesday night thing.
Yeah.
Thursday.
Well, when you had competing companies, WCW and WWE, WWF at the time.
Yeah,
there was a lot of wrestling going on.
Yeah, there was a lot. I remember that. I think like they stopped it around the early 2000s. But yeah, so in anyways, yeah, the Saturday night main event, I always look at them as premium live events, even though they're supposed to be just kind of like a continuation of Raw and SmackDown.
When again, it's the most exposure that you can have is the 3-letter network. I mean, there's Fox, ABC's, NBC's in particular in this case. That's why it was a big deal to get SmackDown to Fox for a while, and then of course they, like I said, the 3-letter networks expect a certain return. Maybe they didn't get, maybe they didn't, whatever. They moved off of it. But that's where they've got Goldberg and Gunther set to square off here. And then a couple other men, like the rest of the card is basically just thrown together, like we're kind of saying, because they have a limited amount of time at times to kind of set it up. It's also just kind of odd. I think a lot of face versus face type of situations going on. They did that for the King of the Ring tournament. Now we're going to see that for Io Sky and Rhea Ripley, as well as another match that they have set up here. So it's just kind of interesting the way they're going about business. But it's worth talking about. And like you said, I think there's a mix. There can be some long-term storytelling. Heck, the Goldberg Gunther stuff started months and months ago. And then the Lyra Valkyria and Bailey. I mean, so some of the stuff is long-term, and some of it's just kind of, hey, these guys shouldn't, and they do that pretty much for any premium live. It just feels like, I guess we're spoiled is what I would say, because as we look and run down the show here on Raw and SmackDown, there were a lot of these premium live event matches set up. But I don't know if it was as good of a week of wrestling as maybe we've had in the last couple months, just because of all the moving parts and all the premium live events that they have had to set up. And so now that it's kind of interesting, like you said, Saturday night main event Saturday, and then Evolution will be on Sunday. So as we're doing the show next week, probably might be the main event of Evolution. So I don't know exactly how we're going to try to take it all in. We might kind of have somewhat of a live reaction. We'll certainly be able to react to Saturday night main event, but it's going to be a fun week, a little bit different. And as I saw, the ticket sales, having it in Atlanta back to back Saturday night might lend itself a little bit more to people to be able to come out. Looks like the ticket sales have been pretty good for Saturday night main event, and then Evolution is trailing behind a little bit. But again, that's kind of what you're taking on, and it's such a cool event. It's the second all women's premium live event they've ever done. The first one was also called Evolution, and it's so it's empowering. It's cool to follow these storylines, but it still is business, and so you have to kind of look at it from the business side. How do you kind of pull that off? And that this is kind of what they've landed on. So we'll see if this week ticket sales might pick up, but you might be able to tell that there's a difference maybe in the viewing of it if there is a significant difference in attendance.
Yeah, and I think they're going against AEW's All In Sunday night, and then I think I heard a rumor that there's a Beyonce concert like across the street from their venue.
Yes.
So, WWE, these things are planned in advance. That probably wasn't the time. And I'm not saying I don't know if there's a bunch of Beyonce fans, that are WWE fans. I don't know where that collides.
The crossover might not be too
but
much,
if they're giving out free tickets or something like that, people are going to probably choose to go to a Beyonce concert over a women's pay-per-view. And especially because, I kind of mentioned it last week, you just came from Saudi Arabia, where there were like no women in the stands, and I think you had like 2 women's matches, right? Or something, maybe one. And then 2 weeks later, you're trying to have an all women's, pay-per-view event without some of your main, ladies in it. Cause we know Liv Morgan and Nikki Bella were supposed to be a big part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that got scratched. I don't even know where, probably going to throw some more things together there.
We saw this week. So I was trying to think of the other match for face versus face. Trish Stratus coming back to take on Tiffany Stratton. So both championships are on the line with face versus face.
Yeah.
Stipulate or setups, I suppose. Let's just something changes this week, and you might see a turn that night. But it's a different way of going about booking. And as we sit back and look at the booking for Evolution, it feels like it could be, and you, again, appreciate WWE for what they've done. Maybe there's a limit to what you can do. Just feels like it could have been better set up. Like if they're struggling with ticket sales, or they have, the Beyonce concert or competition, it probably could use a little bit better of a boost with some of the booking they've done leading up to it.
Yeah, that, or you don't put it the same weekend as Saturday Night Main Event. And I get it, it's probably a lot for them. But if you're trying to market that second ever, because I think the first Evolution was great. I think Ronda Rousey headlined it. It was phenomenal, big thing. And people were like, why'd they stop it? And then now they're putting it on a random Sunday behind that. This should have been something, could have even been next week, on a Saturday by itself in a different arena. And I bet you it would have done fine. It would have been probably, the ticket sales would have been a little bit better.
Bring it to Lincoln, damn it.
You know what? I think that would be fun.
We could have sold it out. Man.
Yeah, Omaha, we could have sold it out. I know it's not somewhere they probably want to have a premium live event, but hey, just ask the lady volleyball, the volleyball team. I know that's different, but people come to see all. We don't do, I love Lincoln. It's my hometown, right? But it's Lincoln, Nebraska. If it's not, right now, there's not really a sport going on.
Yeah.
I mean, you bring something around here, to Pinnacle Bank Arena, they're going to sell those 15,000 seats that they have in there, and no problem, because we don't have anything else to do, really.
Well, we make our good sales pitch. We've had volleyball day in Nebraska. Now we need a wrestling day in Nebraska.
We need it. We need it. We need. You know what? Yeah, we need it. We'll go there. We'll hype it up. We'll do it all. Just bring it on over. We'll sell that thing out real fast.
Let's go ahead and jump into the action this week. By the end of the show, for the matches we do know, they're still going to work on setting them up. I think there's only 3 matches confirmed for Saturday Night Main Event, so we're going to have to see. Yeah. They're going to have to add a little bit more to that. I think another one very well could be Dominic Mysterio and AJ Styles, who's Dominic's been putting that off a little bit, excuse me. So, I'm sure they'll fill out the card there. And then, and so we'll predict that, and we'll predict the matchups for Evolution as well. But let's just go ahead and jump into Raw. As I said, a lot of these segments are going to lead directly to those events this weekend. And Monday Night's Raw opener did. Rhea Ripley, came out, huge crowd. Pittsburgh, one of my favorite wrestling cities. You always get a good crowd there. So they were into Rhea Ripley coming out. But it didn't take too long for Io Sky to come out as well. Rhea Ripley kind of was going through things. She's going for the top. Well, Io Sky comes out. She says that Adam Pearce gave her the right to choose who she defended against at Evolution, and she chose Rhea Ripley. This was one of the best matches of WrestleMania this past year, of course. In that one, it was the triple threat. This one will just be down to these two. Bianca Belair. Well, we haven't seen her in a while. Maybe she'll show up. But Bianca Belair was the other competitor in the WrestleMania match. And you got to remember, Rhea Ripley has not beat Io Sky before. I said we'll have our predictions later, but I'll go ahead and say I don't know if this is the spot for it. It's interesting to see how this is kind of cyclical, right? Because Rhea Ripley had the title.
Yeah.
Io Sky beat her kind of on a random throwaway Raw night that we thought, okay, I didn't think it was going to happen because this was before WrestleMania. And she was doing it out of kindness to Io. They kind of had this friendship type of thing going on. And they've never really turned on each other throughout this. So they still got this level of respect. There's still kind of the face versus face element of it. And so here we are setting up the match. It makes sense that Io would choose Ripley out of respect. But again, I just feel like Rhea, I don't know if the title should have ever been taken off of her. As good as that match was at WrestleMania, wouldn't have been more important if Io would have won it at WrestleMania. Yeah. And so I'm just kind of trying to do the math here, is if maybe this was all, okay, we want Rhea to carry the belt, but let's give Io a moment, and then that would make sense for the change of title here. But to me, I think Rhea, as we've been talking about with some people, she's fascinating chasing the belt. When she has the belt, they haven't always had the best direction for her.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the common problem we talk about every week is whoever the champions are, just like WWE just forgets their champions. Io Sky, when was the last time she defended this championship? She's done absolutely nothing other than appear on segments, and this one here. So you're right. I mean, it was, we were confused, like you said, that Raw, where she beats her out of nowhere. We're like, oh, we feel bad for Io. She's going to be left out of WrestleMania. They give her the belt, and then it becomes this triple threat there. But man, I'm going to keep going back to it. WWE just keeps dropping the ball with these champions. I mean, they just don't defend. They don't do. Tiffany Stratton, I mean, once a lot, outside of Nia Jax, like, she's not doing anything with her belt either. So it's the same thing. So poor Io Sky, I mean, this is now the second time she's not doing anything with it, and it's not her fault on there. But I mean, with Rhea Ripley, it's fascinating. She's very over. We get it. People think she's hot. They like her for that stuff on there, and she is good in the ring. But I think this is one of those, like, Hulk Hogan, early 2000s John Cena, where it's like, yeah, just, Roman Reigns before the big dog became a thing. It's constantly just shoving it down, fans' throats that eventually, they might turn, on her. Right now, she's still got a big pop and everything, but it's kind of just the same thing. The interesting thing, though, as you mentioned with Io, she's never beaten her. So that throws a wrinkle into it. Is Evolution, I hate to say it, but a poorly put together throwaway Evolution going to be, where she does it. You would think they got to do something big, right, for an all women's pay-per-view on there. But I mean, because if she beats her, what's next? Who would even challenge Rhea? There's really nobody on the roster. If you bring back Becky Lynch, I don't know, something like, or have her chase that title, but it's going to be the same exact thing, on there. So it almost be just have Io retain, keep the storyline going, have Rhea, like, turn heel, do something interesting there. And then maybe at SummerSlam, we can talk about, finally pinning Io and getting that championship back.
Well, and it just kind of goes back to there's certain things. I thought that Asuka was going to win Queen of the Ring to face Io. And so they went with a different direction, and that's fine. But don't take the belt off of Io before you do Io and Asuka, right? I mean, that sounds like it's going to draw some, print some money there. But again, with both those performers, the language barrier is always there. And now Asuka's done a better job, I think, of getting the crowd into it. Rhea does, but you could tell, like, in this segment, she really was struggling, and then kind of used her native language and started rattling stuff off. Then people got excited. But they've done this since they've turned her champion. I don't know if it's like, sometimes they kind of have in her backstage segments, which maybe are a little bit easier if you pre-tape them a little bit, but having her go out there and speak her second language, and I think she's fair enough at it, but is she good enough to do a wrestling promo in English?
Yeah,
it's not the best, and so she's always somebody that with Damage Control, you've kind of had either Bailey or somebody there to kind of speak for her. And now it's just weird that it's like, all right, now she's the champion. Let's test this and see if it works. Wouldn't you do that before she's champion?
Yeah, you do that beforehand. And what do you feel about this? I'm okay with it because obviously I can speak a couple languages, not Japanese, but I would say just let her cut some of those promos in Japanese, like, make it a mystery to us, make Rhea, make the audience kind of guess. Google, you could have that, because Shinsuke, I mean, a bunch of people do that.
Yeah.
Look at all the Hispanic performers. They deliver a lot of their lines in Spanish. Damian Priest, I mean, they get away with it because, spoiler, they're saying cuss words in Spanish, if you guys didn't know that. When they say some of those things, they're saying some bad thing about their opponents, but you could always try that. But like you said, I mean, the puzzling thing is Io Sky was champion, and Dakota Kai was right there. Should have still been her microphone, doing great. All that stuff. Was another popular wrestler, from Australia, the same exact thing as Rhea. They decided to cut her, right as Io's champion. And it's like, that could have been your solution. That's what she was, just the bait, she was the mouthpiece for it.
Yeah.
And like you said, I love that Io is getting better at English, but it is very hard to understand her. And especially if there's any type of noise, you have no idea what she's trying to say to Rhea.
And it's not completely take the promo away. It's just shorten it. It's just, like I said, it's like they're testing out whether she could deliver a long promo now. It's like, well, just give her a few sentences. And then, like you said, do a lot of, talking Japanese just to get the crowd going. Because again, they don't really care what she's saying. If she's saying it with, something behind it, then they kind of get into it. So we'll see what they do. They're very interesting. very interesting, but not the best way, I wouldn't say, to start off Raw. Again, this was the perfect example of this week of, okay, there's evolution here in 2 weeks. Put it together. You could see it coming, right? That looked like the match that was coming, but how are they going to get there? And how they got there was a promo, and Rhea didn't do great in this promo either. She kind of stumbled on some words, so it was just kind of a not the best opening to Raw, but it did get what you wanted to. Again, what we all want to do is see these people in the ring again, because they had one of the best matches, or were part of one of the best matches at WrestleMania. I mentioned it earlier. We went to a backstage segment here. Dominic Mysterio flashed a doctor's note and told AJ Styles that he could not touch him and that he could not compete. And of course, that he could not compete that night. And of course, AJ Styles has an Intercontinental Championship opportunity lined up. So kind of interesting. He called him old, kind of doing the young versus old type of thing. And Dom's had this longer than I thought. I thought the next night he was going to lose it right after WrestleMania. And when you say, well, is he doing well with it? Well, as we get to later in the show, his group is doing quite well as long as far as collecting belts go. So we'll see. I think this could be added to Saturday Night Main Event. I haven't seen anything online, because this feels very like right up Dominic's character's story, right up his alley. I don't know if this is legit or not. So if it's not, well, obviously the doctors aren't going that far. It's not legit, but if he's able to compete, then I think we'll probably see one way or another it be set up for Saturday Night Main Event. If it is legit, then you'll have to wait. But at least he's working and getting screen time when he's hurt.
Yeah. See, this is one of the only champions you can have that's not constantly defending their belt, but still keeps it relevant. Because it's Dominic Mysterio, one of the biggest names out there with that. But man, I just want to see the two best hair in the in the WWE going against each other finally. We've been teased it. Dom's got the mullet, AJ's had the hair. A little bit jealous of it because I can't grow it out that long. Like they can there. But yeah, if it's a work, I do foresee probably Saturday Night Main Event being the time. But I love this segment. It's always that you can't touch me, you can't touch me. I always think that's hilarious. But I am a little curious because AJ Styles doesn't have a lot of time left in the champion in the WWE, right? He's in his 40s, I want to say, and he said this is his last contract. I don't think a Saturday Night Main Event is where you should end Dominic Mysterio's Intercontinental Championship run. But like you said, the Judgment Day, they're looking good right now. They're doing what everybody wants, right? As students champions, do you start kind of taking some of them away and make that storyline interesting, and have AJ Styles have a run with Intercontinental Championship? Because then you could have Dominic, in the group going after it again. But like I said, I don't know if that's something you put on a Saturday Night Main Event.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that could be an interesting dynamic where Finn Balor now has a belt and Dominic doesn't, right? Because there's been a power dynamic there. And again, we'll get to what ultimately happened with the Judgment Day. This week wasn't great, but the Judgment Day was they did the right things to kind of send them in the right direction. So we'll see. AJ Styles feels a little bit above even an Intercontinental title, but sometimes you can use that to elevate the belt. So we could definitely see that. You could have some big time matchups with AJ Styles for that championship. And like we've said for the longest time, Dominic Mysterio, this is not necessarily, he's not going to break Gunther's Intercontinental title run. So I don't think it's going to last all that long. But with the movement that they've had in the Judgment Day, they seem to be a group of belts. So I would say they might stick there. So let's go ahead and jump into that. That was the World Tag Team Championship match that they had on Monday Night Raw. The New Day against the Judgment Day. Two of the best abs in the business, Finn Balor and Xavier Woods. Shout out to Xavier Woods, who, there's different kind of wrestlers. Sometimes they say there's a body wrestler. Finn Balor certainly is a body wrestler. He looks the part when you see him. Xavier Woods, I don't know if he's always been that guy, but he's turned into that guy here recently. So I got to give him credit for that. That being said, the New Day hasn't necessarily, as we were saying, haven't defended their titles a whole lot. So they haven't had a lot of screen time, despite being World Tag Team Champions. But this match was really good, and it was kind of interesting because it was heel versus heel, right? The Judgment Day still kind of seen as the bad guys, but the crowd, this Pittsburgh crowd, really got behind Finn Balor, and it made the match, which was already fantastic, I think even better, because it kind of utilized, the crowd was behind him for his hot tags, plenty of near pins throughout the match, big time, finishers and moves being made, and still no one could kind of get clear and get the win. But eventually, Finn Balor was able to hit his coup de grace, and they did get the win. And so this is the second tag team championship reign for Finn Balor and JD McDonough. And again, more importantly for the Judgment Day, they have the women's champions right now. They got the men's champions, got the Intercontinental champion. So just a lot of belts to be passed around for the Judgment Day, which at times, and many wrestling fans over the last year, I would say, they've been calling them out for the last couple of years, maybe break them up. A lot of people saying break them up over the last year. They might have done it had Liv not gotten injured by now, but instead, this is the direction they're going. And you know me, I'm a big Judgment Day fan. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I love that Finn Balor is once again organically getting put over. He was the first Universal Champion. Unfortunately, Seth Rollins, injured him and he had to vacate that title after a day. But this is somebody everyone's been calling since he came back to the main roster. Hey, give him another title run. I mean, you don't ever hope for an injury. You don't want one. But like you said, this Liv Morgan injury was kind of perfect timing for everything in that, because you got Roxanne coming in, taking that. You're kind of, when Liv comes back, what storyline is that going to create for the Judgment Day? So I don't think we're going to see a breakup happen anytime soon, because, or the Judgment Day will still be around, but it's going to be kind of like a bloodline civil war once Liv Morgan comes back. And I think that's something we want to see again on there. But, Finn Balor getting another championship title there with the Smack or the tag team titles. Hey, if he gets put over, does good enough. I mean, however long that goes, that this Royal Rumble coming around, who knows what he can do.
Yeah, it'd be fun to kind of see what the next move is for them and for JD McDonough, who's a really good worker, really good in ring. Obviously, a young guy trying to get the rub from Finn Balor. Being champions with him now twice is quite a big deal. Again, now tough to kind of see what they do with the New Day on the opposite end of this, just because. Yeah, you just kind of keep going back to it, is how hot they were for the breakup. Then they decide, turn on Big E.
Yep.
And it was like, all right, well, what's going to happen next? Kind of changed their music. Now they're bad guys. They did give them the championship at WrestleMania in a match nobody wanted to see. And they just haven't had any sort of buzz since then. And that's why this kind of changing the belts makes some sense. So they got to find something to kind of get those guys going again.
Yeah, because like you said, I mean, they had that huge storyline, the 10-year anniversary. They do everything with Big E. They're spatting on Twitter. They hate each other. And they do absolutely nothing with it other than, have them try to do, what Dom is doing, talk over the crowd. It wasn't working. But yeah, they were just doing backstage segments, so it didn't really work there. You got to reinvent it. You can go back to the Big E storyline, but I think a big part of that is Big E needs to be medically cleared from that neck injury. Which it seems like he's probably not, but I mean, they'll probably just be chasing, the Judgment Day's title again until they eventually probably win it, in a month or so, like they always do with these tag titles. And then it'll just be another hot potato. But yeah, they got to do something. I mean, Kofi can do a singles career. Xavier Wood, I don't think can. But I'm at a loss. These are two great guys. They've been around forever. They can be heels. They can be faces. They can be whatever you need them to. But I don't know if Triple H is just having issues right now in that team, but there are a lot of great wrestlers on that roster that they're really just not doing much with. They're not capitalizing on. And, in this day and age, you have AEW, you have everything in Japan, all these other, wrestling promotions that can pay more money now. You don't want, people to get upset and get out of their contracts, because we've seen, some of the new faces not be able to really live up to that hype. So you got to kind of count on these guys. And, right now, this is probably one of the first times I'm like, I don't know what you do with talent. You, like you said, you gave them a huge win at WrestleMania. Nobody wanted that. They were in a 6-month-long feud with the War Raiders. Nobody wanted that. And then they lose to the Judgment Day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to say. It's tough to say, because usually when you kind of have a tag team that's struggling, okay, they've done everything and they've done everything. Yep. 3 times over or whatever, and say, okay, time for a split. Well, the time for the split was before. That's when it was really hot. Now, if you did it, just be like, well, they're just kind of stuck in the mud. How much do you care if they break up and one turns on the other? Maybe that's the route they go. We'll see. Like you said, they'll probably just win a tag team championship here in a month. Yep. They'll be fine. But again, it's more than just putting a belt on them. It's trying to get their characters back to a point that the fans really care. So maybe bring back the pancakes. We'll take a quick break here on Nuclear Heat. We'll be back as we talk more WWE Raw and SmackDown leading up to a Saturday Night Main Event and Evolution this weekend. We'll do that next year on 93.7 The Ticket on Nuclear Heat.
Rain, snow, or shine, John Henry's is here to keep your home's plumbing systems working properly no matter what kind of weather Nebraska throws at us. From unclogging toilets and drains to installing new water heaters and water treatment systems, John Henry's is your plumbing expert in the Lincoln and Omaha communities. Visit us at calljh.com or call
John Henry's.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing, Heating and Air.
and electrical.
Hey guys, you have heard about the Farrell's 10-week challenge for years on the ticket. If you still haven't joined us for this amazing challenge, what are you waiting for? You could be our next $1,000 winner like Derek, who just lost 30 pounds, 23 inches, and 8% body fat. Derek changed his life in the 10-week challenge, and so can you. Farrell's combines kickboxing, strength training, and nutrition coaching to get you the results you have been waiting for. Join us July 12th for the Summer 10-Week Challenge. Go to fxblincoln.com to enroll today.
Every home is different. Every family is different. So when it's time for a new heating and cooling system, why not get what fits you best? Get the perfect fit with Bryant. Maybe you need higher efficiency, better humidity control, increased warranty, or all the bells and whistles. Bryant provides options in warranty, features, comfort, and efficiency while maximizing savings. Call Bryant Air Conditioning, Heating, Electrical, and Plumbing, 467-1111, or visit BryantLincoln.com. Bryant, whatever it takes.
Are you ready for a new opportunity? Check out Sandhills Global. Join a dynamic team where your skills are valued and your career can soar. We offer full-time positions with a 4.5-day work week, competitive pay, excellent benefits, and a positive work environment. From IT and marketing to sales and finance, we're looking for talented individuals just like you. Apply today at sandhills.jobs and take the first step towards an exciting future. That's sandhills.jobs. Don't wait, apply now.
Out here on Nebraska's calm, welcoming waters, fishing is a breeze. It's the sweet spot where solo anglers find quiet before the catch, families reel in memories, and first-timers discover what makes fishing so special. From the Panhandle to the Platte, the best fishing happens here, beneath Nebraska skies. Get started at letsfishnebraska.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association in this station.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven, on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
We are back here on Nuclear Heat. I'm Jake Bachman alongside Nuclear Heat contributor Augie Pena as we go through this week in wrestling leading up to Saturday Night Main Event here this Saturday as well as Evolution. We were going through Raw here, so let's go ahead and pick up where we left off, which is an injured Chad Gable telling the Creed brothers to listen to Ivy Nile. He has to go away for some time. Now, the question was posed, does that mean El Grande Americano is also out? So you have to wonder, Ludwig Kaiser was hovering around in the background, and later El Grande Americano did show up just to look there, just to show up, just to show his face, and he seemed to be a little bit taller than what we're used to seeing in El Grande Americano. And if you walked away, you could tell he kind of did a little bit of a Ludwig strut. So I believe it is Ludwig Kaiser who is in the El Grande Americano gear there. But obviously, I think we might. I think as crazy as this gets to, I think that we might end up seeing two El Grande Americanos battling it out, because I believe Ludwig is doing that because he listened to what Chad Gable had to say, and now is trying to interfere with the group.
Yeah, and or it could have been Luke Kaiser the whole time. I don't know, Luke Kaiser the whole time, because remember, I think it was like a couple weeks ago, the Grande Americano went on. He didn't have that tattoo anymore, so it's like, is it a couple people? But I think Chad Gable is actually legitimately injured. I think he had surgery to repair something. So, but yeah, it's a fun segment. Your boy Ludwig Kaiser hasn't been on air for a while. He's still doing backstage stuff. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to have him be El Grande Americano. And yeah, I think that'd be the perfect continuation of the storyline. And then once Chad comes back, you have the short one and the taller one kind of appear at the same time.
We'll have to see how long Chad's out. That's news to me. It's sad for me to hear. Big fan of Chad Gable, and I was hoping this El Grande Americano clash would happen. So we'll see. Maybe it will happen eventually. But it always interests me too. Like they flew Ludwig to Pittsburgh, and okay, maybe this isn't the best example because at least he did the El Grande Americano thing later. But the previous week he was just kind of in the background.
Yeah.
Of course, we'll see Karrion Kross do this all the time, and eventually he'll get some. But it's just like we say, it's better to be, get any screen time than catering. But you fly him all the way there. I don't know if he gets paid per show or what. But he's just,
yeah.
He doesn't get a line. He doesn't even get the front of the camera. He's just in the background. He's almost supposed to be like kind of an Easter egg there that you see. And so I just kind of wonder about that. Hey, here's your role for this week.
Well, I mean, if you think that's crazy, I think for the Saudi Arabia in the Friday Night SmackDown, they flew Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss all the way out there for 1 minute of a backstage airing time. Can you imagine? What is that, like 16 hours probably to get out there? Time. For 1 minute. So, I would assume they get paid, but I think it's hilarious whenever, you see a character have the Judgment Day. I mean, they for months, Carlito would just be in the background, JD, that wouldn't be a bad gig. I know flying, it's not my favorite thing. I haven't done it in years, but man, can you just imagine? Oh yeah, my job is to go appear in the background and I get paid $300,000, $400,000 a year to do that. I could do that, man. I could be an extra. Just have me be a body just laying there. I could do that too.
Yeah. So any work's good work, I suppose. And, get it there on TV. So we'll see. It's kind of weird because, like you said, I'm a big Ludwig Kaiser fan. He's been off TV for a while. I still think before they get, I think him and Gunther would have made interesting, but they really sometimes being off screen for a while could help if you're kind of stale and they bring you back with your music. I don't think it's helped Ludwig. Ludwig was kind of starting to build some momentum. Yep. And now that they've kind of taken him off, you bring him back and maybe to do this El Grande Americano thing. I'm not sure if it's the best, but again, it's TV time, which is better than what he's been seeing the last couple of weeks here, last couple of months. We move on to Sheamus versus Rusev. As you might imagine, this becomes a banger of a match with both men bruises on them by the end of it. And interesting enough, this was Sheamus and Rusev's first singles match since 2014. So quite a bit of a long time there for the former League of Nations partners to battle with each other. And this is, I kind of like these matchups, just two big guys. This doesn't take like the long-term storytelling. Like I said, there's some stuff in there you can look to, but these guys are just believable. Hey, I'm tougher than you. I want to fight you. And so they kind of do that. I think there will be more here. If Sheamus would have won this match, I think perhaps that's the end of that. But Rusev ends up using an eye poke to kind of get the upper hand, eventually gets the Machka kick for the win over Sheamus. And so I think we'll see this thing extended. Good matchup of some old time wrestlers. Of course, Rusev went away to AEW for a while. So that's probably the big reason for not having faced each other in the longest time. Mm-hmm. It's a good match, I thought.
Yeah, no, this was a wrestling match. This is kind of what we grew up on, right? Like wrestling matches on there. I'm going to throw this out there. Once they're done with this feud, make these guys a tag team. Put them in that division, get them going. These are two former. Was Rusev a world champion as well, or did he not?
Never quite world champion.
Never world champ. But I mean, he won everything else out there. Hey, the way these guys can literally, we talk about believability. These two guys can literally just beat up anybody, and just submit them. Everything you want to do. And that, can you imagine just pairing them together and saying, hey, here you go. You're going to destroy this tag team division and make those championship relevant again.
Well, this is kind of how the bar started, right? With Sheamus and Cesaro back in the day. They had like a 7-match showdown. Eventually, you're just like, wow, these guys can really put on a heck of a match. What can they do together? And then they ended up being a very good tag team for the longest time. So I could see it, and it's interesting because directionally, that's the one thing I think is a little bit lost in this is I think they're both. It's a good match. It's a nice feud, but what are either of them heading toward, right? You brought Rusev back in kind of with the same character he had in AEW, but kind of feels like kind of mid-card right now. I mean, he's going to need some momentum behind him. His new music, probably not I would have went with his old music. I wouldn't go fully into his old character, but still kind of a refined edition of it. But they've kind of went with this new thing, and we'll see. Sheamus has just kind of been around. Yeah. And we all know he's got to get to that, to get the Grand Slam. He's got to get that Intercontinental title that he never wins. So they'll have to do that before his tag team championship dreams, but we'll see. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah. And I mean, hey, there's another member of the League of Nations that's on the commentary table. and Wade Barrett, that could step in.
Yeah.
They could form that. I know this was kind of a low point. They mentioned that. I even think Wade Barrett is always like, yeah, let's not talk about the League of Nations. That didn't really go so well. But it had, that was them two, Cesaro and Wade Barrett, I think, right? Were kind of the four.
Not Cesaro. Now I'm blanking on his name.
It wasn't Cesaro.
It's the Mexican wrestler that dated Paige for a while.
Oh, Alberto Del Rio.
Alberto, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're not gonna talk about that guy.
Yeah,
but
so that's why.
That's
whatever.
And he's from where my people in Mexico are from. He's such a man. That's such a sad time too. And everything there. I can't even be proud of him there. But yeah, I mean, hey, you get 3 of the 4 guys back. That could be something fun.
You could do something there with Wade. They definitely need to get Wade Barrett involved in some way or another.
Yeah, John Cena. Talk about burying somebody. John Cena ended Wade Barrett's career there. That's for sure.
Bada Bing, by the way, chimes in on YouTube, says, love the show, fellas. We thank you for the support there, Bada Bing. Let's move on here to the backstage segment where Finn Balor was talking to Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis, and he talked them into letting Raquel Rodriguez, and Roxanne Perez defend the women's tag team titles. So they are the tag team champions. Of course, Roxanne Perez, the kind of the new trying to get in the Judgment Day as of this episode, and Raquel Rodriguez, of course, tag team partners with Liv Morgan, who's out. The general managers did reveal that they were going to have a 4-way match as tag team champions. Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez were against a team from Raw, SmackDown, NXT at Evolution. And so later on in the episode, we saw the Judgment Day did officially vote to induct Roxanne Perez into the group as its newest member. Dominic Mysterio somewhat begrudgingly felt like he needed Liv Morgan's approval on this one. So we'll see how that kind of turns out. But I think it's time. I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, but now I'm nervous because they're building that championship or that tag team on SmackDown of Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, who I feel like are going to represent SmackDown. You just had Roxanne and Raquel finally bond, and say, okay, this is what, and you're gonna possibly, because they've been building Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair for a couple weeks now, maybe even a month. I'm worried that they're gonna,
they're gonna be the favorites.
They're gonna lose, and then it's all gonna crumble, and then I don't know. I mean, they have a plan on it, but I'm not excited for that.
We better start moving a little bit quicker. We tend to start talking about Judgment Day quite a bit. All right. Karrion Kross brutally attacked Sami Zayn and demanded that he say his name. Sami Zayn would not deter this from him. He would fight later in the night. But if you were hoping that Karrion Kross and Sami Zayn was over, you are out of luck. Anything to add there?
No, not really. Just, hey, Karrion Kross is still around and he's still attacking Sami Zayn. Here we go.
Yeah. Let's extend that further so Sami can beat him again, I guess. I'm not really sure. World Heavyweight Champion Gunther then made his way to the ring to discuss his match against Goldberg. Said, I heard Goldberg says he doesn't like bullies. Well, Bill, too bad you bumped into the biggest bully around here. So I love Gunther kind of calling out Goldberg there. Seth Rollins comes out, making his way to the ring. He revealed he didn't go to Saudi Arabia to cash in the Money in the Bank, but to cost CM Punk his chance at the championship with Seth. Of course, that's been his goal for years. So that kind of helped to make up for, the look from Seth, I suppose, leaving Saudi Arabia there. But ultimately, Punk hit the ring, comes out looking to get his hands on Seth Rollins, kind of bumps into Gunther, knocks him down. So it's interesting to see, is there going to be something with CM Punk and Gunther down the line? But for what was next for Seth, he got out of the, hightailed out of there. CM Punk was coming after him, and LA Knight attacks, and they start brawling into the crowd. So kind of interesting. And now we know Seth Rollins and LA Knight will fight at Saturday night's main event. Remember, Seth Rollins' group took out LA Knight before, so looks like that is the feud they're going with. But like I said, maybe even more interesting than that, which I know you're an LA Knight fan, so hopefully you're kind of excited about that. Yeah. But I'm more interested if they go anywhere with Gunther and CM Punk if Gunther beats Goldberg.
Well, remember they teased that last year, and I think CM Punk ran a promo when Gunther was world champion before WrestleMania and mentioned something about, do I take out Gunther? Is that the path I'll go? So they're kind of foreshadowing. And this makes me happy because possibly this is showing that Gunther is going to beat Goldberg. SummerSlam, his opponent, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Money in the Bank.
Yeah.
You know that. I mean,
That would be fun.
It's kind of bringing
kinda
that
set
all
up
there.
for a while.
But talk about a lot happening in a segment. There was
Yeah.
a lot happening in this segment.
Any hope for LA Knight, or you kind of think?
No, you
Yeah.
can't. You can't have Seth lose.
No.
you can't do that.
Yeah. It's again kind of sad for LA Knight. The crowd is still behind him, but he can't be the first adversary of Seth Rollins basically, and come out on top. So we'll kind of see there. Then we had Bayley versus Lyra Valkyria. This was made the number 1 contenders match for the Intercontinental Championship. It went about as what you would think it was. Back and forth action that ended up with a 3 count with both women pinned. So referee Jessica Carr announced the match as a draw, and both competitors were upset. So they started battling against each other. We knew they were going to have to get to a 3-way some way with throwing in Becky Lynch for that Intercontinental title. This is, again, the way that they do it, as we talk about, maybe kind of placing things together quickly. I kind of like it. I know you didn't like it too much. I could tell from your reaction there, but it always just kind of reminds me of the years that they do the Royal Rumble and they amazingly have the guys fall at the same time.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is a little bit less. All you have to do is kind of have both guys, both gals in this case, pinned. But I kind of like a draw once in a while to throw you off.
Yeah, but this was this was pointless.
Draw.
Yeah, very, very pointless. You didn't have to have this happen. It was an okay match, but everybody knew, it was going to be these 3, and they're going to fight at Evolution. I mean, and I don't know. It's kind of just a spot filler. Here you go. This was the popcorn match. I hate to say it, but this was the popcorn match because you knew, neither one of them was going to lose cleanly, and there is going to be a triple threat. So yeah, that's why I was a little disappointed on it.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Speaking of disappointed for your main event, no, just kidding. But the main events on SmackDown and Raw weren't all that great. But if you're a big Jey Uso fan, you might have liked this one. So it was Sami Zayn and Penta against Bronson Reed and Breakker. Again, Sami Zayn kind of has a built-in excuse why he might not be at 100%, as Karrion Kross had hit him earlier in the night. And so we did end up getting Braun Breakker getting the win with spearing Sami Zayn. After the match, though, they attempted to further punish Sami Zayn. They got to get out their weapons and such. But Jey Uso makes the save.
Mm-hmm.
Huge ovation for Jey Uso getting involved. He brings in a steel chair and kind of runs those guys out of town. I think it's interesting because, it sets up Jey Uso maybe ultimately to go after Seth Rollins in a little bit. I think that's a fresh matchup for both of them if that's what all this is leading towards. But again, it's also, it does kind of fall into the good guy, all the good guys kind of getting together here, which we've seen over the years. And now it's against Seth Rollins' group.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's the same thing over and over again. Good match though. I mean, these 4 guys really put out a good match, and there were some swerves on there, but you ultimately saw how it was going to end. And I thought it was going to be Cody Rhodes, but it's Jey Uso, so they're kind of the 2 that always come in and save the day. And yeah, it maybe create different rivalries a little bit. But I mean, this was a Monday Night Raw where you watch it, you have fun with it, but you shouldn't have expected too much.
Yeah, it's not one that you miss too much if you miss from it. Let me ask you about Bronson Reed and Braun Breakker. If you feel like they are being protected enough, because that's my kind of problem here. They win the matches, which they're doing, but again, they go, in this case, get chased out and kind of backing down. And they gave Seth Rollins, and again, they need a name. That's one thing. So I keep saying Seth Rollins in his group. It has Paul Heyman in it, and they still don't have a name. So that's one thing. You gave him Money in the Bank, so they certainly have momentum. I'm not saying that, and they look to be the bullies, but they're just. I always like a bad guy that looks unbeatable, that is week after week causing havoc. And Bronson Reed and Braun Breakker are kind of they're getting a one up here, and then later in the night, it's kind of the old Judgment Day treatment that we saw before, where they're the bad guys and they're doing bad guy stuff, but they get their comeuppance almost every episode already.
Yep. Yeah, and I was thinking about that during the match too, because Paul Heyman's there, talking on the phone, and they're talking, and I'm like, man, these guys. I know Penta and Sami Zayn are 2 popular guys, great wrestlers, but the way you're, trying to build up this faction, on there, like you said, they were close to losing, they were, I'm fine. Everybody wants it to be, fun matches, but I'm fine if the guys like these just run through everybody, right? Like just bully them, there's maybe a minute or 2, but there's a believable moment where you thought maybe they'd lose. and things like that. And that wouldn't be good for them either. But yeah, I agree with you. I think they need to do a better job. And I think Bronson Reed Braun Breaker is kind of starting to question some things now. What's plan B, things like that. Because Seth now has essentially a world title shot. What's up with Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, and they're starting to question that backstage a little bit.
Yeah. So we'll kind of see what's next with that group. We got SmackDown to talk about. We'll do that coming up next year on Nuclear Heat on 93.7 The Ticket.
Empire Netting and Fence delivers top quality netting and fence solutions. From major sports venues to backyard installs and everything in between, coast to coast. We take on tough jobs with grit, integrity, and a strong commitment to safety. Empire is growing, and we're hiring motivated people ready to grow with us. We build each other up, and we're building something big. Think you've got what it takes? Apply now at empire-fence.com. That's empire-fence.com.
Are you ready for a new opportunity? Check out Sandhills Global. Join a dynamic team where your skills are valued and your career can soar. We offer full-time positions with a 4.5-day work week, competitive pay, excellent benefits, and a positive work environment. From IT and marketing to sales and finance, we're looking for talented individuals like you. Apply today at sandhills.jobs and take the first step towards an exciting future. That's sandhills.jobs. Don't wait, apply now.
Rashawn Jackson here for Bauer Underground, who has been serving local contractors and utility contractors all across the state since 1997. When you see the black and white trucks, you know the baddest dudes in the business have arrived. Bauer is currently looking for equipment operators, laborers, diesel mechanics, and aerial linemen. Join the brotherhood built on hard work, authentic people, and pedigree of success. Bauer, a family-friendly company who reminds you, go Big Red!
Saturday. Eagle Raceway is open for a full season of dirt track racing action every Saturday night. Don't miss the epic battles on the high banks of Eagle Raceway each Saturday between the Nebraska Septic Sprint Cars, Nebraska Lottery Modifieds, Avid Realty Sport Mods, Valentino's Hobby Stocks, and A1 Iron Stock Cars. Let's go racing. Eagle Raceway, just 10 miles east of Lincoln on O Street. Check out the full schedule at eagleraceway.com.
Back to Nuclear Heat with your host, Jake Bockoven on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to Nuclear Heat here on 93.7 The Ticket, the show where we complain about what we watch hours and hours of every week. No, we don't complain. We just like to critique it a little bit and have some fun with the world of wrestling. And so we'll jump into SmackDown here as we continue our review. We saw a quick segment in the beginning of SmackDown. Of course, this was pre-recorded. This was July 4th edition as far as the airing of it. So I should start by saying that. But in any case, we saw a quick segment in the parking lot with Jacob Fatu attacking Solo Sikoa as Solo Sikoa arrived in a car in Solo Sikoa's cronies, if you will. Jacob Fatu attacking everybody there. So that kind of got you excited. We saw later that they would be in a tag team match for the main event. So that kind of setting the show up to start with there. Of course, Solo Sikoa, the new U.S. champion, after beating Jacob Fatu, who only had that one title defense. So that was kind of surprising for a lot of us to see, but makes sense as far as long-term storytelling as those two should be going at it. We'll get to that here in a little bit. As far as in the ring, the first time we saw anybody was King of the Ring winner Cody Rhodes opening up the show with a sparkly new crown that he's got. He spoke for a bit about winning the tournament, and then Randy Orton joined him in the ring. Randy Orton seemed a little bit still frustrated that he hesitated, didn't quite go for the punt at Cody Rhodes at King of the Ring. Rhodes did not hesitate and therefore won. And then we saw Drew McIntyre make his return. The Viper ends up hitting the RKO out of nowhere after McIntyre talks at Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton for a bit. Ultimately, we have Nick Aldis book Orton versus McIntyre for Saturday night's main event. Again, this is where I talk about rush type of stuff. Drew McIntyre needed a little bit of a break from TV, I think, because his threats are starting to come, feel like they're not. He's just not following through with them, but he's still great in the ring, great on the mic. One of my favorite wrestlers today, and they kind of bring him up in his first return. He's already on the floor in the middle of the mat, and I understand that this is the way they wanted to do it so that he wants revenge on Randy Orton, but not the way I would have utilized Drew McIntyre coming back. And, Drew McIntyre versus Randy Orton's a great matchup. Kind of similar to what we talked about earlier with Sheamus and Rusev, but there's not a whole lot of build up to this. And again, like I said, taking some time off TV can do wonders for your character. And I thought McIntyre just needed a bigger return.
Yeah. And it was out of nowhere, this, like you said, it was just totally rushed. And even I was like, Drew McIntyre, I was like, great to see him here, but you don't want Drew having a loss, like you said, coming right back. You don't have Randy having a loss, because it seems like Randy's starting to get back to the Legend Killer on there. And I don't know. Yeah, it was a fun segment, but yeah, like you said, Drew got taken out, and now they're fighting each other on Saturday. So we'll see how that goes.
It kind of just left Cody there, who started this thing with like, what's going to happen with him? Obviously, we know he's going after John Cena. This was a week, and maybe that was part of it. This week we talked about it. Maybe not as exciting as the last couple of months. Is there no John Cena? Cody Rhodes not in a whole lot of action. Obviously, just showing off his crown, but not a whole lot other than that. And then we had the matchup between the Secret Harvest, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair in BFAB and Mishin. This was to see who was going to go on and take on the Judgment Day at Evolution, along with some other tag teams. So it's basically to qualify. And this was entertaining because Alexa Bliss basically forced her way to tag team with Charlotte Flair. They kind of set that up in a match in a backstage segment with Nick Aldis. And so as soon as you saw that, you knew they were going to win, but how interesting could they make it? They made it pretty interesting. Ultimately, Charlotte Flair tags Bliss in by tapping on her head, kind of like kind of looking down on her or whatever, because she's still not really into this tag team. But they ultimately get the win from there, because Alexa Bliss does a twisted Bliss from the top of the rope. And so it kind of interesting. Flair, even for a second, she kind of let down her guard and hugged Alexa Bliss, and then realized what she was doing and pulled away. So you still got to have that story line going. I don't know how long Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair will be a tag team, but I think it's kind of interesting. And Flair's kind of been in a creative, stuck in the mud type of deal. So we've seen this coming, but I think this was a good, strong step in the direction of both their storytelling.
Yeah, and I'm okay with this. Like you said, Flair was kind of getting booed, wasn't having a good time, and Alexa Bliss, we're wondering where she's at. Put two single stars together and push them in the tag team. That's why, like I said earlier, I'm a little worried for the Judgment Day there, because I feel like these two are being built up to be, the 1A, 1B of the tag team, division, to give them kind of a breath of fresh air. And that could be what's going to happen on Saturday.
Yeah, and both
Sunday. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right, on Sunday. And both these stars, I think you can run. We've seen Charlotte, like, she had a World Tag Team Championship with Asuka, and that lasted like 2 weeks. I think they could go a little while here and set up a swerve at some point to turn heel. Then you have something for each of them to do. So, and by facing each other. So I just like the future look of that tag team, and then the breakup, and just, months of being able to utilize Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair in that direction. After that, we had the Wyatt Six taking on Berto, Chris Sabin, Montez Ford, and Johnny Gargano. Basically, one member from each of the tag teams that have been having problems with the Wyatt Six. The Wyatt Six basically had the upper hand the most of the match, and then Gargano refused to tag when Sabin was reaching for him, and just let Rowan get after him. So the Wyatt Six win this match. I believe Nick Aldis said as well that this was basically the Wyatt Six were going to deserve a chance at the championship if they won this one, which they already had a match, which was broken up by all these matchups coming in. So kind of cyclical nature here, but at least a fresh matchup, and at least Rowan looked good in this.
Yeah, he did. And we've been asking for the Wyatt Six to do something. They're doing something now. It might just be around that that championship, around kind of the mid card in there, but better than having them be away for 4 months after like a year of buildup. So they're at least doing something with them.
And I'll just go ahead and skip a segment. Fraxium also faced Andrade and Rey Fenix. I'm interested if Andrade and Rey Fenix get mixed into all of this, because they're kind of the new tag team, and that's what this showed. Fraxium was a new tag team, got a couple wins, looked like the company was behind him. Then they faced him against Andrade and Rey Fenix, and now that looks like the tag team they're kind of behind. This was a fast-paced match. Ultimately, Andrade and Rey Fenix win. But if I'm going to start pushing them, I almost almost keep them separate from this whole Wyatt Six against the roster type of situation.
Yeah, I agree. And, Ray Phoenix was somebody they had a lot of hype for. And they did absolutely nothing with him. They had him lose he was the WrestleMania guy that filled in for Ray. And,
Rey Mysterio, that is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Rey Mysterio. And he's Penta's brother, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think biological brother. Yeah. And here's something to do for him, because I remember they had the segments, they had everything, the hype for him, and they did absolutely nothing so far.
Well, and Andrade too. I mean, he's so good in the ring. He's got some other things going for him, but they just never have been able to quite find a singles push. So I think a good combination there with Ray Phoenix could help out. Two things we got to get to quickly. Tiffany Stratton came out to pick her challenger for Evolution, much as Io Sky was able to do so. She chose to take on Trish Stratus, who came out. So you kind of got a face versus face there. And also Jade Cargill was in there just to kind of stare both of them down.
Yeah, not a huge fan of this. I mean, they're letting both champions pick their competitors. And Trish Stratus, one of the greatest ever, but the last match we saw wasn't all that great for her, so we'll have to see how this one goes.
Yeah, and I easily could see her turn heel, or maybe not. Maybe just have this all go there, and we'll kind of see. Obviously, again, Jade Cargill waiting in the wings to have a championship match at SummerSlam against the winner. Then we got Jacob Fatu and Jimmy Uso. Jimmy Uso and Jacob Fatu made up earlier in the night. We could see them kind of starting to come together the last couple of weeks against Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo. As you could tell, Solo Sikoa and JC Mateo, that's not their full group. So you kind of knew the full group was going to come in at one point, and they did. And they had Fatu get the win and specifically pin Solo Sikoa, which I hate. He's a fresh champion.
Yeah,
I hate having him get pinned. And then Tala Tonga comes out and Tagaloa comes out, and they take care of Fatu to kind of finish that thing out. But yeah, I didn't really like any part of that.
No, and like you said, so you had JC Mateo there, the perfect guy to take the pin, and you had Solo Sikoa, who just won the United States Championship, his first ever on the main roster. And this just shows that without his group, Solo Sikoa cannot beat Jacob Fatu, and I don't think that's a good look for your champion.
I don't think it is, but I think it's what they're writing, right? Like that's kind of how he won the championship, was the group had to interfere, and it's clear Fatu is a better wrestler and just better altogether. So I get it, but I'm always just for protecting your champions, and especially when JC Mateo's right there. Or they could have went the lazy way and have them do it before there was a pin, have the interference. But this is just not how I would have done it. That's what they chose to do. I don't know if it drops Solo Sikoa any more than
I think it does. It hurts. I think it hurts more. This is a guy that you were saying kind of rookie, Rocky to get there, and then first night as a champion essentially on TV, and you have him get pinned by the guy it just doesn't.
Yeah,
that doesn't sit right.
Didn't do wonders for him. Further kind of sets up what I think a lot of us expect is that Jacob Fatu will get that championship pretty quickly back from Solo Sikoa, but they could have at least made us wonder for a little bit. They didn't do so. All right, that'll wrap it up for this week of Nuclear Heat. Like I said, next week we will review Saturday night's main event. Or I'm not forgetting. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Saturday night main event.
There's too many premium live events out there, and Evolution as it's going on. So that'll be a fun episode. Join us next week. That'll wrap it up for our local programming here. 493.7 The Ticket for tonight. Early break. We'll get you going bright and early in the morning. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.
When you're outdoors beneath Nebraska skies, adventure